Hello, and thank you for clicking play on this video. This is just a quick tutorial or an explainer video that's going to show you two things and clearly explain two things related to the practicum course. Number one thing is, what do I do when I'm micro-teaching? What's the procedure? I'm just unclear on a few things, okay? Number two is you're going to see what are reflections, how are reflections done, and what's the procedure for that. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through this. You can fast forward to the second half if you're interested in reflections, because I'm going to talk about micro-teaching procedure first. Okay, so here I'm logged into your practicum Google Classroom, and what I'm interested in here is micro-teaching 1. So I go up to the classwork tab and I scroll down to MT1. Okay, so I signed up. If I'm a student, I signed up for one of these touchstone topics. Remember, that's interactions, chart, and micro-teaching 1. And I'm going to click on do weeks 3 to 5. And what I see here, I see three things. I see the instructions in written form, I see a rubric, and I see a personal plan. Instructions are for your knowledge, right? That's so you can read exactly what we're doing, and so you can understand what micro-teaching 1 is about. The personal plan is also just for you, but you're going to submit it so that your practicum teacher can see it, because your practicum teacher is interested in seeing what you have in mind. In fact, if you submit it early, and if you're really nice and leave a comment and a request, your practicum teacher will check it out for you and make sure you're on the right track. The third thing is your rubric. Now remember that the rubric is important because that's what your teacher is going to use to assess you during this. So whether you're teaching online or you're teaching in person, that rubric is the document that your teacher is going to edit. So please submit that before your micro-teaching. Now let's look at your personal plan. So what I did here was I already started my personal plan. I didn't finish it. Imagine I'm a practicum student. Well, just like it says here, this is a note to self. So this form is for you. It's not for your teacher. Your teacher is going to look at it and say, all right, this micro-teacher is on the right track, or this micro-teacher is planning to do something that's a little bit different than what we need to practice here. So you might get feedback that's like, remember, we're activating schema, we're not teaching grammar, we're not doing some kind of advanced activity here, we're just getting them talking. So you might get feedback like that. Or you might get feedback like, hey, I think you're on the right track, and I can't wait to see your micro-teaching in person or online. So what I've written here is like, I have a greeting first, and then I'm going to show my photos on the Google slide. And also remember this, if I go back to your Google Classroom, speaking of Google Slides, and I scroll down to this week's micro-teaching, I can open that up and I can find our Google Slides. Now, if I scroll down here, some of my classmates have already done this, so this is really cool. And I can edit a slide for myself if I want, or I can make slides for myself, my own Google Slides if I prefer, or particularly when we're in person, you don't need to use Google Slides or PowerPoint at all. You can go old school, traditional. We have a whiteboard, boom, put a picture up there. Okay, so that's all up to you how you do that. Here's a little tip: if you're going to use the whiteboard, don't put an A4 picture up there and ask the person in the back of the class what they see. You want to get it kind of a big picture is a good idea if you're going to go the traditional way. Anyway, back to our personal plan. I have decorated this. This is a real picture from my computer, taken in my last apartment. I thought it was creepy and it looked like a ghost, but it's a coat rack. Anyway, so I put that on the whiteboard. I put that in my Google slide, and I ask students, maybe S1, S2, or TSST, what do you see in the picture? And another note to myself, I want to personalize. After I elicit ghost or something, I want to personalize. Have you seen a ghost? Have you seen something scary? Talk to your partners. I want to respond to meaning. And these are just notes for myself. Step 4, I'm going to be an Injiguan, so I want to monitor to make sure everyone is talking. Okay, so basically that's for me, but I'm also going to share with my teacher when I submit. Okay, what's my general topic? Let's say I signed up for ghosts. That's my general topic. And if you look here, there's some reminders. Are you getting students ready for the topic? What interactions are you using? Does everyone have a chance to speak? Did you check comprehension? If there's especially instructions. Are you using your whiteboard, etc.? That's just reminders for you. Okay, so that's your personal plan. You submit that before your microteaching. Okay, now let's talk about reflection. Now for MT1, what we've done is if you are for MT1, if you were a micro teacher in the first one, I just went ahead and gave you just the self-reflection form. If you were not a micro teacher the first week, I gave you a peer reflection form. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to post a different reflection form each week, so you know when it's due and so you know which one you have to do. Okay, so each week I'm going to post a different reflection form. It's just going to be easier that way for everybody. So let's imagine I was a peer and I watched my peer. Oh, by the way, who is my partner for this? I look for my name, boom, 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 and let's pretend my partner was John, was the same color as me. And so I go to John's microteaching. Where's John's microteaching? Well, I scroll down and I see this video here, John MT1. So I'm going to watch that video carefully, but as I'm watching that video, I'm going to go to my reflection form. My reflection form, reflection, okay, right there. MT1 reflection forms, and actually your teacher's going to edit this. I'm going to make it say reflection forms about week 3 microteaching or something clear like that, okay? Because you're going to get 3 of them for MT1. All right, and I go in here, and if I open my document, this is just for me. This is just for me, Hong Gildong, the student. My teacher's in here too, but I am Gildong Hong, okay? So I'm going to watch carefully that video. I'm not going to play John's micro-teaching right now, but imagine I'm watching it picture in picture, and I might pause from time to time and say, oh, okay, I think maybe John did some of these. How was John's teacher talk? So I'm going to say, oh, sorry, John, this says she. He talked more than the students, or he talked about the same as the students. He talked more than blah, blah, blah. Okay, which teacher's role do I think he was mostly like, and give my reasons? and I'm going to put 2 things there that John did well, and 2 suggestions that I might have for his future micro-teaching, because I'm his peer. And then these are teaching basics, and if you don't know all of them right now, it's not the end of the world. This is what we call a noticing activity. But by the end of the semester, you're going to know all of these well. And just so you know, let me just tell you quickly, nominating every student, nominate, from the Latin nom, name. So in other words, saying every student's name at least one time. Did John do that? Whiteboard skills, basically, and you can find it in your practicum book. I think this was the week 1 or week 2 teaching basics at the end in the practicum book. Basically, did he write big enough? Are the images big enough? Is he using color or whatever? And when you're teaching online, it's the same thing, but think about Google Slides, right? Body language. It's not just for teaching in person. So if, for example, John was like this, that's body posture says I don't really want to talk to anybody. But if his hands are out and he's welcoming, etc., if he's like, hey, hello, you, bada bing, bada boom, you know, so he's gesturing, body language, yes or no. Dual coding, especially with instructions and new language. Is it written and spoken? Is he pointing at it? Task before text. This is not really necessary here. It doesn't really apply, but this just means you tell them what to do and check comprehension before you hand out material. And we don't really have an activity here, so it doesn't really apply. Face savers help students save face. So let's say a student said something that was inaccurate or wrong. Well, in MT1, there's not really wrong answers. Like if you say, what do you see in the picture? And the student says, well, I see a butterfly. You don't say wrong. You say, well, okay, where do you see the butterfly? That's interesting, right? But if you have right and wrong answers, student says the wrong thing, you don't say, wrong answer. What you do is you say, you know, that's pretty close. You know, that's a nice try. You want to keep trying, or you can ask somebody else, right? So you're kind of acknowledging their effort rather than just right or wrong. On that last one is attention getters, and you're going to see more of these in person on Saturday, but when we're teaching online, attention getters are like, come on back to the main room, type B if you're back, or whatever. It's like classroom management. Attention getters in the classroom are like, look at my hands. When I do this, you do this, okay? Or like the picture says, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Students say 1, 2, eyes on you. So it's a way to get their attention without saying, stop, 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 right? It's a kind way to get their attention, and you can kind of involve them. All right, so you've done that. You've gone through classroom interactions. You kind of highlight what you think that your peer did, and there's probably going to be a lot of these scaffolding things, and of course they're activating schema. Eliciting. Eliciting covers all of this, a lot of this, so you could go ahead and highlight eliciting, I guarantee it. So whichever ones that he used. Ways to prevent learning. Remember, these are not good practices, and they're things that Scrivener talks about. So if any of these apply, go ahead and highlight them. All right. So that's your peer reflection. Now I put a due date on peer reflections and self-reflections just to kind of get you in the habit of finishing this well before class time on Saturday, because we don't want you rushing to do it, you know, in the Injeguan, watching your phone and giving feedback to your peers, which has happened in the past. We want you to kind of think about it. And that means, you know, in the comfort of your own home, perhaps with a Coca-Cola and, you know, watching it on your device. So please submit it by the due date. This is also homework for practicum. But And this is key, everybody. Before you click submit on that, before you turn that in, because it's due the day before, but before you turn it in, if you know you're going to be in person, which we are this week, I'm speaking on March 11th, then you want to print it out. Okay, so print it out and bring it with you to the Injigwan. Why are you going to do that? Because you're going to hand it to your partner afterwards. So let me take you through the actual procedure. The procedure is, and what's the best thing to look at here? Let's just look at my desktop. The procedure is basically this, guys. You come into the classroom on Saturday. The first thing we do is micro-teaching for this week's micro-teachers. Okay, so that means if you're micro-teaching, bring your device, bring your rubric, and give it to your teacher. Not your device. Give your teacher your rubric. Give your device to a friend who's going to record for you. And by the way, friend who is recording, you're also going to be a novice level student. So just because you're holding this doesn't mean you have to hold your tongue. Okay? So while you're doing that, your teacher is also going to record. So your teacher records for his own records to do your assessment and so on. And it's also, when two people record, having a technical problem is not the end of the world. So if your phone fails to record, talk to me. If my device fails to record, I'm going to talk to you so I can see your recording. Okay. So we do the micro-teaching. Students who are not teaching are acting like good novice level students. Micro-teachers are acting like it's a real class. And then we finish, right? And often that takes the first hour. So what do we do in the second hour of practicum? That's when we have reflection time. So we start the second hour of practicum, usually, sometimes we go over a little bit. We start with reflection time. And that's 15 minutes at least of peer and self-reflection. So peers have the peer reflection form, and micro-teachers from the previous week, they have the self-reflection form. And in those groups, they talk about their observations. And I always suggest that we start with the self-reflections first, because it's really important to understand how the micro-teacher feels about his or her own performance. And then peers can give their feedback. Now, it's important for peers to be honest, but also be positive. You know, you can be positive and honest about any performance. So point out good things that they did, always. Point out constructive things they could change, you know. And what I love about peer reflections is that your peers are going to point out things that don't occur to me because they're coming from a different perspective, right? I'm coming as a teacher trainer, and they're coming to you as your peers and who are your students during that time, and so they're going to notice other things. All right. So that's done. After 15 minutes, you give that reflection to your peer. Say thank you for accepting my reflection form. You give it, just hand it to them because it's theirs. It's for their benefit. Okay. Self-reflection, that's for your benefit as well. All right. And if there's time left over, which often there is, we have a little mini practicum lesson. And at the very end, you'll get my feedback. So after class, I give you my feedback. And the reason for that is if the teacher gives you feedback first, students often are inclined to ignore their peers' feedback. They say, well, Dave already told me everything I need to know, or Connie already told me everything I need to know. And that's just not the case. Okay? So that's the whole procedure, and I really hope that you all learned something from this if you watch this, and there are no surprises, but feel free to email me if you still have questions. Alright guys, see you soon.